Welcome everybody to another deck tech. This one is probably the most expensive deck I've made in a long time. So we have our Vader placemat here. I did a huge deal from all that stuff I opened to trade for some strategic stuff that I wanted to use. So our leader in this is going to be Boba Fett. Boba Fett is great when you kill enemies. Basically when an enemy leaves, you may exhaust him and you can ready a resource. So this deck is going to be focused on ramping. If you are not at least 2 or 3 resources ahead of your opponent at all times, then you're doing something wrong with this deck. So we're starting with Energy Conversion Lab, which allows us to get something out with Ambush. You're really going to use this probably for Boba Fett or possibly the Superlaser Technician. We'll get into that as I go through the deck, but this is our sort of heart of the deck right there. So let's start off with our green package. There's a green-yellow deck. So we're starting off with green. This guy, the Superlaser Technician. He cannot come down on turn 1, so it's 3 resources, but essentially you want to suicide him in so he dies, and then he gets put in as a resource. So when defeated, you can put him as a resource. I've actually been using Energy Conversion Lab to get him in on turn 3 and just immediately kill him off. So next turn I have 4 resources. That may not be the best move, but we run 3 of him. This is one of the best cards in the game, I think, as far as ramping. There's very few ramp tools, so this is one. And we have a couple copies, including a nice hyperspace treatment. Next, we have our Steadfast Battalion. Because we're going to be ramping really quickly here, we have a lot more higher cost units. This guy's pretty good, you know, Overwhelm, so that's like Trample and Magic, if you will. And then if I control a leader, which ideally by the time he comes in at 5, we're going to have our leader out. So Boba Fett comes in on 5. So what does Boba Fett do? He is a 4/7, so pretty meaty. So you should control him by the time you're getting these Steadfast Battalions out. And when you complete an attack, if an enemy unit dies, ready up to 2 resources. So once again, you're going to be spending lots of resources. Your turns are probably going to be longer than your opponent's, so you might also never have the initiative. So that's something to keep in mind. So we're running 3 Steadfast Battalions, and then our Vaders. So obviously, typically with a 7 cost unit, you might not get this in until like turn 6, maybe. But with our ramping, with a Superlaser Tactician and one other card we're running here, we might get Vader in on like turn 5 or 4 even. So what does he do? When played, search the top 10 cards. Any Imperial with a combined cost of 3 or less, play them for free. So you could use it to get this guy in, or we'll see some other options. So we run 3 Vaders. He's nice, a 5/7, powerful, hard to remove. Moving on to our bigger dog here, the Reinforcement Walker. He costs 8, but when played, you can look at the top card of your deck. Either draw it, because since we're playing so many units, we're going to probably have a card disadvantage. So either draw it and discard it and heal 3. So you can either draw it or do a little bit of healing to your base. So we run 2 of him. Small space package. This is mostly focused on ground. We're probably never going to have the initiative, but if we do, he does nice restore 2, so 3/3. And then resupply is clutch also for our ramp strategy. So you can put this event into play as a resource. I can't, we've been playing at my local tournament that does not come in as an exhausted resource, it comes in as a resource. I'm not quite sure, I'm not a judge, but I believe you can use this resource that turn. But that's how we've been playing it. Might need a judge to tell me. So this is another ramp card. So we have essentially 6 ramp cards between the 3 Superlaser Tacticians and the 3 resupplies. So since we're not playing a lot in space, we might need a card like Overwhelming Barrage. So you can give a friendly unit +2/2, and then just do this attack. Then he deals damage equal to its power divided by unit. So you could take out like a red 3 or something that's annoying, that's providing sort of a macro benefit to the entire board. You can use Overwhelming Barrage to take that out and help keep space in check a little bit. So we run 3 of those. And then this is kind of just a chaotic card, a Traitorous. You can grab one of their cards that cost 3 or less. I think this is fun as a sort of, you know, maybe card. I would also consider cutting it out. So that's our green package. What are we running with yellow? So yellow, we start off with nice cheap Greedo. Ideally, you're going to have one of these in your hand the first when you draw, so you can get a Greedo down. When he dies, you can discard a card from your deck. If it's not a unit, deal 2 damage to a ground unit. So we run quite a few events and stuff. Greedo is just really something to help initial 3, so he can probably almost do a trade on the second turn to get rid of something they played. Crafty Smuggler, he's shielded. Shielded is great, so you might be able to help with that early game ramp. This deck might, it's possible in your first like turn or two, you might have like 0 cards you've played. So you really got to make it to that like mid range or mid game to take full advantage. So Mr. Fett, this card is just great. He's a 3/5, 3 cost, so you could get him out on your second turn. On attack, if attacking an exhausted unit that didn't enter play this turn, deal 3 damage to the defender. So that damage is going to come in before his attack. So it's possible, you could really take out some big units, like basically up to 6 health here. So I think Boba's pretty good. You can also pull him from the Vader, right? So that's possible since he's only a 3 cost. So pretty good synergy with Vader. Moving on here, we have Bossk. Ambush, when you played an event, which we run quite a few events, deal 2 damage to a unit. All right, on to so that's our small ground. We have a little more yellow space here. So Cartel Spacer, when played, if we can spot another, yellow unit, you can exhaust a unit that costs 4 or less. Pretty good, because at this point we should probably have one, get a nice hyperspace treatment there. All right, 7th Fleet Defender, nice shielded 3/2. Fett's Firespray. This is just great synergy with Boba Fett, obviously. So when you play, if you control a Boba or Jango, which doesn't exist yet, you can exhaust you can exhaust a non-unique unit, assuming you have 2 of the yellow in, which we will from our leader. So we should be set there. Actually, now that I think about it, we don't have 2 yellow. So we can't take advantage of that. But anyways, he should come in ready because you should have Boba out. All right, shoot first. So this is just great to getting rid of like quick units, basically like attack first without, receiving the damage if they die. So we run 2 shoot first, surprise strike, attack with unit. It gets 3 plus 3, 0. So once again, just a nice little event to help deal some damage. Hyperspace there. Waylay, return a non-leader unit back to its owner's hand. Just great removal, cheap removal. Think of it that way. Obviously, the card goes back to their hand, but they may have spent 6 resources on it or more. So 3 Waylays, and then finally a Viper Probe Droid. This is just sort of a utility card to help with that early ramp. We don't run a lot of little units, so it could be kind of rough in that early game. We might just be like, oh, I've made a terrible mistake. I'm sitting here on turn 3, and am I going to get anything out? And then finally, our brief little sideboard. So we have some shield tokens. We have a Relentless. So we're going to have lots of resources to spend in that late game. So we kind of want cards like this. The first event played by each opponent loses all abilities. It's okay, but it's really just a big 8/8, so that's kind of nice. Reinforcement Walker, another one, Agent Kallus, shoot first. No Good to Me Dead. This is just maybe another kind of removal control card. And then Change of Heart. Take control of a non-leader unit. This could be great for just sort of like taking control of that Luke, doing some damage to the opponent with him. Maybe he dies along the way, so kind of nice. And that is our sideboard there. One more Viper Droid. So this deck I played with once and did pretty well. I just traded for it the other day, so kind of new, but also this cool Vader playmat to go with it. So I feel like I'm kind of like equipped to play this deck. So thanks for hanging out, everybody. Hopefully this was useful. This is not a cheap deck. I think this is probably going to run in the $300 to $350 range. So this is the opposite of the other deck that I played or showed off that is a bit more expensive. But hopefully this was a fun thing to learn about, and happy to answer questions. See you next time.